Hello everyone, good morning. Permit me to stand on already existing protocols, and finally I get to use that line. Thank you. As Ifeanyi said, my name is Osaruonamen Ibizugbe. I currently lead the gender project at the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, and I warmly welcome you to this first panel session of the day, titled Youth as Catalyst for Democratic Change. We know in Nigeria, youths make up to almost 70% of the over 200 million Nigerians, and they have been at the forefront of social and political movements driving change. So I'm going to welcome my panelists. First, I have Ms. Chioma Iruke. She is a fact checker with the Center for Democracy and Development. Welcome. I'll welcome Madam Busola Ajibola. She is the Deputy Director of the Journalism Program at the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development. Thank you and welcome. And lastly, I have Mr. Jafaar, Mahmud Jafaar, who is a Senior Analyst at Gatefield. Hello. Thank you and welcome. So my panelists today are bringing their wealth of knowledge and diverse perspectives to this conversation. So I'm just going to give 1 minute each to everyone to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chioma Iruke. I work with the Center for Development. I work as a researcher and a fact checker. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Busola Ajibola. I'm a philosopher, and I provide direction for the journalism program at the CJID.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mahmud Jafaar. I work with Gatefield. It's a media strategy firm, and we do advocacy and some other media campaigns. So I'm a writer, journalist, and I'm also a campaigns analyst, and I also currently manage a pro-democracy program that started last year. So I'm currently the program manager working on that particular campaign.
All right, thank you very much and welcome. A lot has been said here today, and one key thing is the fact that youths have been historically at the forefront of driving democratic change through social and political movements. And sadly, despite their numbers and despite the influence that they pull, there has been some challenges that hinder their meaningful participation politically. And this panel session today is going to highlight those challenges, prefer actionable solutions, and also highlight the critical role that youths play in democratic change. So first of all, I'm going to move on by casting our mind back quickly to a major political event, which was mentioned earlier, the Not Too Young to Run movement, which advocated for the passage of the Not Too Young to Run bill, reducing the age requirement for elective positions in Nigeria. So reflecting on that experience, I'm going to start from you, Ms. Chioma. Can you please tell us, how do you think the Not Too Young to Run movement, how do you think they did in terms of actually pushing for inclusion in terms of allowing youth to have a level playing field in the political space?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I'm going to answer it in 2 ways. So yes, that movement actually did well, because 2023 we saw a spike. Sorry, not 2023, 2019 we did see a spike in youth involvement. However, by 2023 it dropped. We then had, I think it was less than 30% of youths contested for various positions of governance. And I don't know the reason why, but I would think that it's probably because of the after effects of NSAS played a huge role. People became a bit reluctant to take part in governance. Voter apathy became even more stronger. Then information disorder is the umbrella word for mis, dis, and malinformation, also had its effect on youths. So these different sectors, these different issues played a huge role in making young people less interested in governance. And I would believe that as we move forward for 2027, it's important that we look back at these issues and create solutions. And I mean solutions should be not just online solutions, it should be both offline solutions. So I was thinking back then when I was sitting there whether I should say this or not to say this. But while we have more than close to 60% of internet penetration in Nigeria, social media penetration is less than 40. And I'm a fact checker, and anybody here can fact check me and check it out. So we have people who have access to social media. It doesn't mean that they are on social media. So you can have access to it and not be on social media. So while we focus so much on social media, I believe that we should take this movement out of social media also. Not that we should not include social media. We should include it and also include out of social media. We should reach people at the grassroots levels who are not very involved in social media but have interest in politics and are a bit reluctant because of what they have heard from those who are on social media. So I think that's my own take. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and I'm grateful you were able to separate it. And now talking about offline advocacy, you mentioned that the Not Young to Run bill was passed in the build-up to the 2019 general elections, and we saw the results that came out of it. And then prior to 2023 elections, it then dropped. Now, going back to that experience, Madam Busola, what lessons do you think we can draw from that, especially now building up to the next general elections and other off-cycle elections?
Yeah, thank you, Osas. So I think the issue of young people participating in election is not just a policy issue, right? I think we did great by getting the Not Too Young to Run bill passed, but I think we dropped the balls, going to sleep thinking, oh, we now have a law that addresses, youth participation. I'm going to, share my experience teaching in a tertiary institution some years back. I decided to, start taking courses. It was a general course, prescribed for every student. I think 100 level, 200 level-ish. Citizenship education. I'm sure everyone in this room, went through it. And then I was taking several departments, and the total number of students added up to about 2,500. So for each class that I went to, I decided to do a quick poll, asking how many of them are younger than 18. So most times I have maybe just 3 out of like 40 students, sometimes 60, 70, like that. And then I asked, how many of you voted in the last election? And then you only have maybe like 2 people who voted. So the problem, and then I decided to do that round classes. And it was the same pattern, meaning that young people who are supposed to be first-time voters were not really participating in elections. And if you do a scale research on that across tertiary institutions, you're likely to find the same pattern. So if you add the numbers, it quickly gives you a glance of the number of young people that are voting age, but that do not see the direct connection of election participation to their own personal development, right? So, and again, another flip example that I would then make is that when I joined the CJID, and we started, I joined the training, the training for young people in journalism across schools. The first day that we encountered the students, and these are journalism students, right? You expect that they are abreast of, what is happening, social issues. For every school that we attended, and I've been to over 30-something now across Nigeria, when you ask the students, so who is the Senate president? Only a few of them know. So who are your representatives? Only a few of them know. Who is your local government chairman? Just only, it tells you something is fundamentally wrong. our problem, if we're going to solve the issue of young people participating in elections, should not stop at policy. We have to take, this conversation out of rooms like this and really go to where the young people are. We need to educate them, on what social participation is all about. How does, your own social participation contribute to social accountability? How does it contribute to, proper electoral governance? How do you realize that you have the power, to really cost the people that you have handed your vote over to, to do what you have sent them to do.
And now, taking it off from there, I'll go to you, Jafaar. What significant challenges would you say youth encounter? Or what would you say hinders them from not fully participating in the political processes?
All right. Thank you. Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I think she had already pretty much answered, that question that you just asked. But I'm going to just start with just a very small story. So last year, under the Frame Democracy Program, that was the pro-democracy program that we're managing, we organized forums across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. And one of the very first questions that I asked at the Engage, because these forums were at universities, right? And we had people from 100 level all the way down to final year, and even some people that came from, just within the states who knew about the event came over. So majority of them answered that no, they don't think that Nigeria is fully democratic. And they gave examples that they gave reasons like corruption and all of these other things. And so I of course this gives you an idea of for the fact that they don't think that the country is even democratic in any way, why should they even participate in any form of process that is democratic? So part of what she had asked about them participating in elections and stuff, we had asked them how many of them have tried to be, how many of them are actually active citizens, and why are they not, if that's the case? And majority of them started talking about reasons like, okay, we don't have access to, the people that are making the decisions. I can't reach my governor. I don't know how to, I don't know where the, local government chairman does not listen to me or this and that. And so we asked them, in your immediate environment, what actually have you done? Because you don't need to have access to your governor or even say the president for you to, be able to make any form of impact or even raise any, raise any issue, right? And again, most of them are just saying that, we don't know, because we don't have access to them, we can't tell them what's going on, or this is how we feel about anything. But within their immediate environment, even within the school that we're at, there are issues that they could easily solve just by mobilizing and organizing, and they did not, think that they need to take that up and, take that ownership. So because they did not even feel like they could do that at that level, imagine if you bring people like that on maybe say on a national level, or even give them access to say the governor. What are you actually going to tell him? No, Kenai, he's in front of you. What are you going to say? So the major challenge is that lack of political organization, of actually understanding what it means to be an active citizen. What is it that I can do within my capacity as a student, as a youth, to actually make any form of change happen just within my immediate environment. So we have that, so this lack of education further leads to then the political apathy that we're talking about. And then the political apathy then leads to not being able to participate in any form of democratic process. And then this, further just leads to all of our own major problems. Because like everyone has mentioned, and even before this particular panel, young people are the majority of this country. And it's not that we don't even participate in politics. We do, because when it comes to all of the other drama and all of the things that happen, all of these people that are in power, they mobilize young people to engage in all of these things. But because we do not come together within ourselves to actually organize ourselves, because there's a difference between organization and mobilization. Mobilization is just for you to come and have an activity and keep it moving. But because you don't understand what an activity is, what an output is, and what an outcome is, you don't even know what you can do within yourself without anyone from any form of any say maybe CSO or even government coming together to say, okay, I'm going to gather this number of young people and this is what I want you guys to do. Go and carry placard, take pictures, and then submit it, and that's the end of it. If, for example, we come together as young people, okay, what's the issue? This our road in this our local government needs to be fixed. Who is in charge? what can we do? Should we do a petition? Should we call the media and maybe even have a town hall and just talk about it within ourselves and see what we can do? Once you start making that noise, people will listen. And social media has made it easier because you can do this conversation both online and offline. You can record people talking. You can, put out the signatures of your petition and say, okay, this number of people are demanding that this needs to change. Tag the policy maker in charge. Bombard his social media, let him see messages, emails, all of this. And we have access to them. We have so many organizations that have these things open. A Google search will show you and give you access to these things. So really, we just need to start from that political education and showing people how to actually, engage in political processes. And it doesn't have to be at the high level. It can just be from the very low level.
Thank you very much. Thank you for raising all of that point. And I'm glad you mentioned that it can start from the low level. And I think this is related to the points that was raised earlier, talking about how poverty influences, whether or not positively or negatively, youth participation in politics and the power of choice that we have as youth. So now, moving on to Busola, he has mentioned some of the socioeconomic factors that influences youth, and education, poverty. Now, looking at the political climate here in Nigeria, how do you think these socioeconomic factors influences youth participation?
Yeah, so someone said, I think in the room, somebody said poverty is a state of mind. I think that was what I heard. And, it got me laughing a bit because poverty can also be a reality. In fact, I think poverty has some people's reality. It was during Ekiti elections, and I think a day before the elections, I'd gone around, I'd gone, for election observation, and I'd moved around town a day before the elections, just asking people, oh, okay, so what do you think tomorrow would be like? Who is the popular candidate here? And people said a lot of people that I spoke to, and then some of my other colleagues spoke with, had a particular candidate that they were all shouting about. And then the following day, when people saw 5,000 naira, in cash, they changed their minds, because you then realize that you have people in massive number who have not counted 10,000 naira cash in 4 years. So it's so easy. We can, use our privileged lens sometimes to judge the reality of people, especially in the hard-to-reach areas. And young people are in those communities as well. So where you have young people who do not have access to financial resources, educational resources, which is very big, sometimes we undermine it, do not have access to something as basic as internet. I mean, Chioma just spoke about, yes, we can, speak to high number of statistics of people on social media, but how are we thinking about the number of young people? What's the percentage of unemployed youth in the country today out of the 70 million? By the time you disaggregate the number of unemployed young people, and then you think of how many of them can actually afford internet, and then that they can spend how many hours on social media, we would be living in the bubble. Just thinking that even when we say 84% of young people are on social media. So the question then would be 84% of how many, right? So if we have 70 million and 20 million can afford internet, and then 50 million cannot, or maybe 30 million cannot. So we're only speaking to 84% of, say, 20 million. Look at the number that have been excluded. So in essence, what am I saying? I'm saying social infrastructures do go a long way in how we prepare young people for political participation, for empower them to become active citizens. Again, I just like giving practical examples that I have personally experienced. when we go to those journalism schools, you know, day one, and then you just meet young people in a very naive state. In 4 days, when you have joked them, you know, exposed them to experts, expose them to ideas, handed over tools to them, and then you follow up with them, say another 3 months for mentorship, it blows my mind. And a lot of, I know in this room there are young people that have been through or that have passed through the campus reporter program. It will blow your mind the amazing things that they will do, just because somehow you've been able to expose the little, you know, that little demography into things that they ordinarily would not have access to. So the question in my mind is, how are we thinking of bridging that gap in not just social infrastructure, you know, a little bit of financial capacities, supporting storytelling grant, for example, something as little as 20,000 that empowers young people who have the passion but do not have the resources, you know, to tell stories that transforms their community. I think it's the same lens that we need to bring into politics. So what do people really need, you know, to participate in town hall or mobilize themselves for town hall engagement, for example? We cannot sit here and say, oh, you know, maybe young people need to participate more. Perhaps what we need to do is go down a little bit more and just help young people to mobilize. Maybe that would help at least with, you know, bridging the infrastructure struggles that we see on several fronts.
Thank you very much, Busola. Thank you for talking about or for pointing out the importance of exposure and the need for the provision of resources. And now you also made a point. You talked about the youth bulge in the rural communities. And you know, when you go to those rural communities, we cannot take out the influence of religious institutions or traditional institutions. Now coming to Chioma, what roles do you think religious and traditional institutions have to play in either enabling youth or discouraging them to actively and meaningfully participate in politics?
Okay. Religious leaders and traditional leaders, they actually play a very big role. However, I think it's more of how can we engage them to influence youths to be more active in terms of politics. While I was in school, there was something, and I believe everybody had witnessed this in some way or the other, whereby you see, they used to call them lecturer boys. I don't know what some people call them in their own schools or their own departments. For them to achieve or attain a certain height, they will have to more like be servants to lecturers. True, right? Yes. It happens also in the religious sector. It happens also in traditional settings. However, I believe that civil society organizations, journalists, media organizations can have a way of training these people. I mean traditional leaders now, I mean religious leaders. CDD does something like that, whereby rather than making this with just their servants, they can influence them in telling them, go out and vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but go out and vote. If you vote, this is not like, I'm not saying you should bribe them, but you'll be more welcomed. You'll be more welcomed in the sect, like especially if it's a religious sect. You are talking to your followers and telling them, please, I want you to hold your voter's card. In fact, if you come on Sunday or you come on Friday, present your voter's card. People will go out and vote. We all know this because we are all in school, and in school sometimes they'll tell you if you don't have a particular receipt or you don't do maybe an activity, you will not enter a class. Tell me, which one of you defied your lecturer and you will not get it? Nobody. Everybody did that. So it's something that religious leaders can do. It's something that traditional leaders can do. I also wanted to point to something that, a question that was asked to Sola. I think delayed gratification also plays a huge role. We don't have the culture of delayed gratification, and I understand that because, in all honesty, we can sit here and chastise them for doing that, but it's not their fault. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You've just said it's not their fault, and I'm going to take it from there and go to Jafaar. Now, in terms of educating and creating awareness, educating the populace on the need, or for them to understand that it's not about that 10K or 5K that they get once in 4 years. What role do you think civic education and digital tools play in terms of creating political awareness among the populace and among young people in particular?
I mean, I think it plays pretty much the major role. I mean, a good example is the Cocoa, and we have the Cocoa Citizen, right? We have even Gatefield, we have our sister organization, we are GIFT. And, you know, whenever we put out content that's educating the public on how to, you know, engage politically, you always see people learning something, picking up something, commenting about, oh, I did not know that this is how I should go about doing this. So I want to pick the first in civic education before we talk about like using digital rules, right? Digital tools, right? So there's a thing that you do when you want to maybe embark on a program, or like, you know, something that, for example, is like, you know, raising awareness on something. You map out your audience, right? And whenever we talk about young people, we're always thinking about young people that are online. But we forget that Nigeria is a very poor country. We have young people that are not online. We have young people that are interested in politics who do not have access to social media. They may have a phone, but that's about it. It's probably just a phone that doesn't have internet, right? So when you map out your audience, you know, you're able to see, okay, within this demographic, these people, for example, this percentage have access to maybe social media, or this percentage, you know, maybe they live in rural areas or, you know, villages where, you know, the best way to reach them will be to go down to that village and organize a town hall between them, you know. So just the best way really, once you map out the audience, to pretty much inform the best way to engage with these people, you know, and it goes beyond just young people. Even the religious leaders and traditional leaders that we talk about, there's a way that we can engage them to ensure that they pass this information to their younger followers, because most of their followers, most of these people, most of these heads, everyone that we talk about, most of their followers are young people, because again, that's the majority of the people of, you know, of Nigerians, right? So when it comes to now on the digital side of things, again, there's a way that we have to target information and make sure that we are passing information in the best way possible. The Cocoa and We Are GIF, they do a very good way of making sure that this information is very fun and relatable. You don't just come and bombard young people with numbers and saying, oh, excess percentage, or this is how you vote, and that's it. You know, we see the difference when you just put out, like, even for example, when, say, these major newspapers who have like millions of followers and readers put out content on social media, they don't make as much engagement or reach as when, say, the Cocoa or We Are GIF put out their own content, because they know their target audience. They know that young people are online and they like watching people dance on social media. So you come and dance and you tell them go and vote, they will vote. That's just how it is. So you know your audience, you understand them, and you know how to pass information directly to them, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Knowing your audience and knowing how to target your activities and campaigns towards them. So now you've talked about digital media, you've talked about social media, and now we're going to move on to the mainstream media. We cannot overemphasize the role that they play as well. Even though we've already established before, I know a lot of people say they don't watch TV, or it's been long since they watch TV. Young people, that they get their news from social media. What role would you say the media does, now Busola, to you, the media does in shaping the political consciousness of youth and activism generally?
So I think the media's role of information dissemination is such a big role. Whether we've gotten it right, you know, or not, it's another kettle of fish. I'm watching morning shows, for example, or primetime news in the evening. You know, politicians, these two politicians are fighting, these two. How does that harm a young person with the information that they need, you know, to be politically conscious? Right? So I think, again, so this would be a challenge to the mainstream media to really get its act right. Growing up, my parents you will be forced to read the newspaper. You will be forced to watch the news, because these are things that shapes your ideology, you know. But I don't think it's the same today. I think the content of the news that should empower citizens, you know, offer civic education has been watered down. I do not quite know why, right? But I think that's something we need to find a way to fix. And if you would just allow me, I wanted to speak to your question on the role of religious leaders and traditional leaders. I do agree that, you know, we need to sensitize them, yeah, but I think I also want to just say that I think that they can also be willing tool, in fact, in manipulating electoral processes, right? So, and let's not understate or underemphasize that. So we probably need to find a way to create conversation hubs, you know, not necessarily at national level, but, you know, so small conversation hubs for young people where you can come and from time to time you're rubbing minds. I think that is currently missing in our civic engagement, national levels and local level, to mobilize and organize themselves, you know, and so that and make decisions and are not vulnerable to manipulations. I think one of the problems that we have throwing up irresponsible leadership is because people can be manipulated to take uninformed decisions. So we need to find a way to dismantle that processes. And just for emphasis sake, the media needs to get its act right. Give the people the right information that they need. The information is in the budget. What are the budgetary provisions for certain facility or infrastructures in your society? The information is in who are the people that should be held accountable when things are not going right. How do you access them? These are the information that the public need that the media is currently not providing.
Thank you very much, Busola. And I also agree. And I would also say that the mainstream media has a major role to play to also address the issue of misinformation that is being created by social media and other digital media platforms. Please, in case you have any question, kindly prepare your question. And I would ask my last question, Chioma. How do we better encourage young people to run for political offices? From my experience working at the National Assembly, I'm the up to the room. You call their names, call the organizations, you don't see them in the room. So how do we ensure that we encourage youth to actively engage and participate in these processes and not just complain?
Okay, before you asked this question, I was thinking in my mind that, okay, there's something like I wanted to say that I noticed that the question had not been asked, and that was access to information. We all agree that information is power. But majority of the time, we don't have that access to the information that we need at that particular time. Take, for instance, many people have talked about funding in terms of politics. We all know that politics is money. You need money to run for office. But there are various organizations that help in that aspect. There are various initiatives that create mentorship and even funding for those who want to run for office, even training also. But many people are not even aware of that. Many people who are running for offices are not aware of this. There are a lot of young people who want to run for office but don't even know the steps to take. And you can see that there's a gap in between intention and how to go about these things. So I think when not just having an idea, when you should also think about how to disseminate this idea to get to these young people. We talked about social media a lot, and take, for example, elect her. We have CIDA, we have other organizations that focus on elections. But go to their pages and see the engagement on their pages. Sometimes you will not even see a single like. Sometimes you'll see one. Sometimes you'll see two. These are platforms that are supposed to get towards election, that are supposed to get towards politics. But many people don't even know about it. That is even the first thing. They don't know about these platforms. Then we'll talk about engagement. So I think that has to do with providing people with the right information, and also that we should look for ways for people to get to know that there is something available like this happening. So it can be roadwork, it can be a town hall meeting just like this, whereby you tell people that there are these opportunities, and I think that we should do this in rural areas, whereby we speak the rural languages there. Thank you.
And then by town hall, it doesn't mean that the town hall necessarily have to be like on a national scale. It can start from that tiny space where you are in, from there.
All right. Can we put our hands together for this wonderful panel? We will take the questions after the second panel. So we'll take all of them together. So please keep your questions noted, and we'll take it after the second panel. Please, a round of applause once again for... Come on, can we make it louder?